One day, I received a call from my son. Where is Dad? Do you need something? Your father is now working at the headquarters, staying at the company's dormitory. My son, Michael, 23, who left home when he went to college, was silent for a while and then began to speak hesitantly. Dad's company doesn't have a dormitory. How do you know that, Michael? According to Michael's explanation, when he was job hunting, he attended a joint information session. My husband's company was also participating there, and other students were asking if there was a dormitory. He seemed to remember that. Why would he lie about going to a bachelor's dormitory, I wonder? I became worried. Michael's silence continued. Do you know something, Michael? It's a bit hard to say, but it seems like Dad is cheating. Are you sure you didn't see it wrong? I understand how you feel, Mom, but it was definitely Dad. Now it was my turn to be silent. I don't know what to say, I'm at a loss for words. The hand holding the receiver is trembling. I'm Patricia Johnson, 43 years old, a full-time housewife. I live with my husband, David, 45. My son Michael, 23, left home when he went to college. I get along well with my in-laws, and they occasionally visit our home. According to my friends, particularly having the mother-in-law come to the house can be unpleasant. I don't mind it, and it's nice to have various conversations. My father-in-law, Robert, 68, and my mother-in-law, Susan, 67, are on good terms and often go out together. They never fail to take their daily walks for health. Today, my in-laws are coming to visit on their walk, buying some traditional sweets from a nearby American pastry shop. I love those sweets, so I can't help but feel relieved. I brew some of our best tea for the guests and enjoy the sweets with my parents-in-law. Eating something delicious makes everyone smile. Michael called the other day. He seems to be doing well. I wonder how he's doing as a working person. I'm worried. Michael will be fine. He's responsible and a caring person. He's the type that everyone loves. I hope so. Patricia, I know you're worried, but Michael is a fine adult now. Michael's always been close to them. Since college, he has been regularly contacting his grandparents. He's a thoughtful child. He always calls me at 8:50 p.m. I wondered why. Noticing my curiosity, my father-in-law began to explain. He probably watches TV dramas from 9 p.m., right? So he calls during the commercial break. If it's past 9, it's in the middle of the drama, and that would be inconvenient. I thought that made sense. He was being that considerate. I think he'll do well in the company. That night, I told my husband that his parents had come over. But his reaction was indifferent. I can't help but think sarcastically. Is he still in his rebellious phase? He doesn't seem to get along well with his in-laws. He ended the conversation with a simple, I see. And that was it. My in-laws are friendly and gentle. It's hard to believe that my husband came from these parents. When we were dating, he was always smiling, and he was always a gentleman. He would always walk on the street side when we were out together, but my husband changed completely the moment we got married. With an arrogant tone, he almost says, I'm the one supporting you. Such an arrogant attitude. I don't know if my deceiving husband is the bad one, or if I was foolish not to see through him. I think the only thing keeping us together now is our child. But strangely, my husband seems in a good mood today. I got a position at the main office in the spring personnel changes. My luck is finally turning around. That's good for you. I was also pleased for another reason. I thought he might increase our living expenses if his salary went up. My husband hands me only the living expenses, and he takes care of the financial management himself. I don't even know how much he earns. Up until now, we've been living with no margin, just getting by. I thought we could have a little better life now. But that hope was shattered with words I didn't expect. For the time being, I've decided to move into the company's dormitory. It's too far for commuting from here, and renting a room costs money. I have no objection to my husband's transfer, and I'm all for it. You'll be on your own, so I'm gonna cut back on the money a little. I have my own living expenses, so this should be enough. The amount he mentioned is less than half of what we have now. I can't make ends meet with that. If you need more money, you can do whatever you like, part-time work or whatever. I was dumbfounded and speechless. You don't have to come to see me unnecessarily. It's a waste of train fare, and basically, women are not allowed. I don't even want to visit him, but the real issue is that cutting the living expenses in half is absurd. You're getting promoted, right? Why are you cutting back on living expenses? This is strange. I'm not saying I won't give you living expenses. So you don't need it, do you? I had no choice but to remain silent at that. Who would want to visit such a horrible husband, I thought. But I didn't realize that this was a sneaky way for him to discourage me from visiting him. I reluctantly decided to work part-time. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have enough for my own food. I visited the local employment office for the first time. Many people were gathered, looking for work. I printed out the details of a company I was interested in and waited my turn. I must have waited for nearly an hour. Finally, it was my turn. They contacted the other party for me. They said they would interview me right away. It was only one stop away from home and convenient for commuting. The place I asked for was a small office in a mixed-use building. When I knocked on the door and entered, it was quite different from the office I had imagined. It had a down-to-earth atmosphere. The person who interviewed me was very pleasant. He introduced himself as Bob, and I felt he was just my type. I honestly told him that I hadn't worked since I got married and that I was anxious. Bob said, "Everyone is kind here, so if anything happens, just tell me." There were a few simple questions, and it was decided that I would contact them later. I left the office, and I was contacted for employment immediately. The job was simple clerical work, and the senior lady was a friendly person. Especially Bob, who interviewed me, took care of me and often spoke to me. He doesn't seem to be much older, and he was a very easy person to talk to. On the way home, I stopped by a coffee shop for tea, or decided to enjoy living alone. But telling my husband about the current situation was a mistake. The freedom I finally got was quickly taken away. He continued to control me. In the evening, he calls home. If I don't answer, the next day he'll nag and ask, "Why didn't you answer?" What's more, even if I answer once, the phone rings irregularly 2 or 3 times an hour or 30 minutes later. I became frustrated. I couldn't leave the house in the evening. He's not going to give me any freedom. Then one day, a call came from Michael. "Where's Dad now? Do you have any business?" "If it's Dad, he's working at the head office and is in the company's dormitory," I said, and Michael was silent for a while, and then began to speak in a hesitant tone. Later, according to Michael's explanation, he had attended a joint company briefing session when he was job hunting. My husband's company was also participating, and other students were asking if there was a dormitory. According to the company's explanation, there is no dormitory, but housing assistance is provided, the person in charge said. I wonder why he lied about going to a dormitory. I became anxious. Michael's silence continues. "Do you know something, Michael? It's a bit hard to say, but it looks like Dad is cheating." Just when I thought he had finally started talking, he began to say something outrageous. Today he was making sales rounds with his senior. "Next, we'll go to this company." The company his senior indicated was the company my husband works at. He might run into his dad. He wondered what face he should make if he met him. My husband and Michael don't get along. They've been on bad terms since Michael's rebellious phase. Today's visit was just to say hello to the sales manager. The meeting ended quickly, and it's past 5 in the evening. His senior is going straight home, so he said you can go home too. Michael, even though he doesn't get along with his father, thought he might have business connections, so he thought he should say hello as a working adult. Michael, not knowing whether he could see his father, waited in front of the company for a while for his father to come out. He saw someone who looked like his father, so he tried to call out to him. But a young woman ran after his father. My husband, with a smile I've never seen at home, started walking with the woman. Michael thought something was suspicious and hid. The woman appeared to be about the same age as Michael. She was said to be beautiful and had a good figure. Without noticing Michael, his father walked with that woman, aiming for the city at night. They went into an upscale restaurant and, after about an hour, went into a trendy bar. He was following them with a detective's feeling but had to be careful not to be found. Besides, he had to be there for a long time without looking unnatural, and it was tough. And then comes the problem. Unfortunately, the two disappeared into a hotel. I was shaken by Michael's story. "Didn't you mistake him for someone else?" "I know how you feel, Mom, but it was definitely Dad." Now it was my turn to be silent. What should I say? I can't find the words. My hand holding the receiver is shaking. My husband is cheating. And with a woman the same age as my son. My mind goes blank. Mom, it's okay. I'll take care of it, so pretend you don't know for a while. Do you have something in mind? I won't leave Dad like this. I won't forgive him for making Mom sad. I was glad to hear Michael's strong words. The only person I can rely on now is my son. Almost a month has passed since then. During that time, there was no contact from Michael and I became anxious. I continue to receive regular communications from my husband, David, as usual. I wanted to confront him about his affair, but I said nothing, just as Michael advised. The thought of a young woman, particularly one around Michael's age, going to a hotel with David makes my head spin in anger. I dream of the two of them mocking me. You're no longer needed, old hag. Just go away and don't appear in front of us. I don't want to see your miserable face anymore. How many times have I had the same dream? Each time, I wake up, groaning. Even at work, I find myself dozing off. Patricia, you look pale. Are you feeling unwell? I haven't been sleeping well lately. I'm sleep deprived. You must have insomnia. Is something bothering you? I couldn't tell the truth and gave only vague answers. I was going through such unsatisfying days when I received happy news from Michael. He had bought presents for everyone with his first paycheck and wanted to throw a party. It seems he wants to gather at his grandparents' house over the weekend and hand out the presents. You didn't have to go to all this trouble, but I'm glad. I feel that Michael has really become an adult now. I can't give you anything grand, but look forward to it. David hasn't mentioned anything about his affair. I didn't bring it up either, as I didn't want to dampen the celebration. On the day, I went to my parents' house early to help prepare the food for the party. I can't believe he's already working. It feels like he was just carrying his school backpack yesterday. Time flies. We're also getting older before we know it. I feel like Michael's birth was just yesterday. What his grandparents are saying feels very real. David is apparently coming that day too. It's been months since we last met. Should I confront him about the affair? I agonize over it. We line up the dishes that my mother-in-law and I made on the table. The doorbell rings, and it's Michael. You're early. Grandpa and Grandma have been eagerly waiting. Michael, whom I haven't seen in a while, looks a bit more mature. He seems to have tightened up now that he's out in the world. You must be tired, come in and rest. His grandparents are overjoyed that Michael has come. Even his grandfather came out to greet him at the door. I'm glad everyone looks well. Thank you for preparing everything today. Michael is ushered into the living room, surrounded by us. While I'm preparing drinks for everyone, Michael is bombarded with questions. Have you gotten used to work? Are your seniors not bullying you? Are you eating properly? His grandparents have a mountain of questions, firing them off rapidly. Michael answers without a hint of annoyance. My seniors are caring, and I'm gradually being entrusted with work. I'm getting along with everyone. And don't worry about meals, they serve them in the dorm. Knowing that Michael has settled into his company, his grandparents seemed relieved. But David sure is late. The food is gonna get cold. Speak of the devil, the doorbell rings again. Answering it, it's indeed David. I'm sorry for being late. Work just wouldn't end. David apologizes. Dinner is ready. I cooked, focusing on Michael's favorite dishes. Michael is repeatedly exclaiming how delicious it is. In contrast, my husband David is eating with a displeased expression on his face. Dinner is over, and we move to the living room. The time has come for Michael to distribute the presents. First, to Grandpa and Grandma, here's this. What Michael handed to Robert, my father-in-law, was a slender box with a ribbon attached. What could it be? Let's open it. Go ahead, go ahead. It's something Grandpa wanted. Out came a fountain pen from a famous overseas brand. Robert often has occasions to write, and I heard he's been yearning for this pen. I'm impressed that Michael remembered such a conversation. A Japanese fan was sent to my grandmother-in-law. A delicate design is carved into it. It looks quite luxurious. It's a must-have in the summer, right? Be careful with heatstroke. Tears slightly welled up in my in-laws' eyes. We'll take good care of it. We'll treasure it. Don't just store it away because it's so precious. It's meaningless if you don't use it. We understand. We'll definitely use it. This is for you, Mom. It was an elegant brooch. Let's go shopping for clothes together next time. I'll find something that matches this brooch. I feel like tears are going to overflow. My husband David was watching us with cold eyes. I wonder what you're going to give me. I'm looking forward to it. Then, Michael's expression changed dramatically. This is for you, Dad. And Michael handed David a large envelope. David spread the contents of the envelope on the table with a puzzled look. Several photos came out. As soon as he saw those pictures, the blood drained from David's face. He tried to hide the photos in a hurry, but it was already too late. What is this? David glared at Michael. It's not a prank. There's a report inside the envelope, Michael said. Michael took the report out of the envelope. It detailed David's actions. The other woman was Shelby, a 24-year-old colleague in the same department as David. Shock and anger welled up. What are you doing? Having an affair with a woman not much older than your son? Are you out of your mind? Robert angrily questioned David with a filled voice. David shrank back. Normally a gentle person, when angry, he radiated an intense vigor. You spend your salary on this? Use it on something better. David had no excuse and began shouting nonsense. Anger and confusion enveloped the family. It's Dad's fault for using money like this. Apologize to Mom. My mother-in-law Patricia raised her voice and started to cry. I raised him wrong, so he became like this. Patricia, forgive me. It's not your fault, Susan. I helped her up. It's partly my fault too, Susan. You didn't do anything wrong. David, explain yourself. David, seemingly resigned, began to talk about his affair. He said Shelby had joined the company the year before last. David had become in charge of her as the trainer for the new employee. At home, David was blunt, but outside he always portrayed a cheerful man, never without a smile. It seemed only a matter of time before Shelby was attracted to such a David. Perhaps she was influenced by David's behavior, and a little crush had developed. She seemed to find young men unsatisfactory. She was attracted to David, who was a bit of a bad boy, probably because of her family background. Shelby grew up in a single-mother household, probably longing for a fatherly figure in her life. Maybe she was waiting for an invite from her husband. It seems they became romantically involved quickly. It appears she really did get a job at the corporate office. They started living together after renting an apartment. To afford the apartment, they had to cut down on my expenses. He was worried I'd cheat on him because he was cheating on me. This resulted in those persistent evening calls. Even though he was cheating, he couldn't bear the thought of me doing the same. Such a selfish way of thinking, in my opinion. Though I never had any intention to cheat on him. I'm cutting ties with you. I'll hire an excellent lawyer for Patricia, and I'll make sure you pay the maximum amount in property division. Get out of this house right now. In the face of Robert's anger, my husband fled like a scared animal. Robert and Susan kept apologizing to me. Don't worry, Patricia. We'll handle everything. We'll also support you financially. You don't have to go to such lengths. I still have Michael with me. That's right, Grandpa doesn't have to do anything. No, I won't be satisfied unless I help out. Just let us handle it, Patricia. In reality, I didn't even have money for a consultation with a lawyer, so I had no choice but to rely on their offer. Everything progressed smoothly. My husband was head over heels in love with Shelby. It seemed he was okay with losing everything as long as he had Shelby. The divorce proceedings moved forward, and his infidelity and financial abuse were confirmed, resulting in him having to pay not only property division but also a settlement. The amount property division of was significant, especially considering he didn't provide for my living expenses. By paying the property division, he was left with almost no money, and I got the house. Robert and Susan decided to take care of the mortgage on the house as a part of their apology. Shelby, my husband's mistress, was also asked to pay a substantial amount of money. Shelby had been saving up for her dream, but now all that money would go towards the alimony. She seemed devastated. She tried to get David to help her out, but he declined. Can't help if he doesn't have the money. Shelby felt as if her dreams were crushed. She became mentally unstable and quit her job to return to her family home. I don't feel directly responsible for what happened to Shelby, but it still pains me. I regret demanding alimony from Shelby in my anger. You shouldn't worry about it, Mom. There's nothing we can do. You just have to move on. Michael is right. But my heart aches. Her family is on a remote island in Florida, and David can't easily visit. Moreover, it's a small community, so who knows what kind of rumors would spread if David showed up. It seems she's made it clear she doesn't want him visiting. After the divorce, to me, David is just a stranger who happens to share a name with my ex-husband. Whatever he does in his apartment is none of my business. He should just live his own life, but his obsessive nature is just too much to handle. I messed up, please take me back. I realized your worth only after losing you. Shelby was just a fling. David keeps calling me over and over. Lately, I just let him talk, then hang up without saying a word. From what he says, his place seems pretty filthy. He once sent me a picture of his apartment, and it looked like the stench would come out of the screen. I deleted it immediately. They took me off sales duty. I've been messing up a lot, and people say my clothes stink. It's all because of you. It's sickening to think I was once married to this guy. How are you going to take responsibility? After getting caught cheating, from being the top salesperson, now I'm being sidelined to documentation. It's as if they're telling me to quit. Can't he see that it's all his fault? I wonder how many times he's gonna blame others before he's satisfied. Is David even sane anymore? One day, David called again. I'm coming over tonight, be ready. He hung up abruptly. I was terrified. What's David capable of? I hesitated but called Michael, who was on a business trip. Just lock the front door and don't go outside, no matter what. How was he planning to help while being on a business trip? Regardless, I locked all the doors, including the front one, and put on the chain. Night fell. I was too scared to even turn on the lights. While I was trembling in fear, the doorbell suddenly rang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Someone was banging on the door fiercely. I know you're in there! Open up! David's shouting terrified me, and I crouched down in fear. Then, I heard voices arguing outside, followed by silence. When the doorbell rang again, I saw Robert on the intercom monitor. I rushed to the door and opened it. You can rest easy, I've driven David away. I collapsed in relief right there, crying. My flustered father-in-law followed, then my mother-in-law came in. Don't worry anymore, we won't let him near Patricia. I had them sit down, and while serving tea to them, I thanked them. It's not for Patricia to apologize. We are the ones to blame for raising such a son. My in-laws had come because Michael had contacted them. They had apparently been hiding in the shadows, waiting for David to appear. Tomorrow, I'm gonna have a talk with David. A captain I know is looking for someone. He works in deep-sea fishing, and once you're on the boat, you can't return to the States for a year. We gotta get him on that boat to straighten him out. He's gonna listen to us. Even such a foolish son is still our dear child. Just think of us as foolish parents and have a laugh. Any parent finds their children dear, of course. Patricia, you must have been concerned about David's mistress, Shelby, right? The money has been returned. She seemed fine. I'm sorry for the trouble. It must have been hard, being so far away. And the money. No, keep the money, please. Otherwise, we won't feel right about it. Some time later, I heard from my father-in-law that David had gotten on the ship. Whether David reforms or not is no longer my concern. Now, I'm happy that Michael can participate in a big project at his company. And I hope for nothing but success there. My relationship with my ex-in-laws is good, and they still visit from time to time. You're still young, Patricia. It's too early for you to grow old. Actually, there is someone I've started dating. It's Bob from the company. With my husband's infidelity, I just thought he was a nice person. Going to work every day and talking with Bob, I found myself feeling at peace, but it took a little time to realize that feeling was something more. It was a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. But now that I'm divorced, I can face that feeling honestly, and I confessed. Then, Bob also confessed that he fell for me at first sight during the interview. Like the changing of the seasons, spring has come to me again.